especially when I was on LSD, it was easy. You could direct it, but you could actually see it. Oh wow, look at all those paisleys. Those paisleys you see. That's what prana looks like.
Hey everyone, Todd Denkin here with Becoming the King of Pot, and we are back with yet another episode with the honest smuggler, right? His name is Kelly. He's going to join us for part 2 because we just couldn't get it all in part 1. So how were you able to sell 1,000 pounds for $250,000 from not wanting to be a
one guy. It all went
pot
to
dealer?
one guy.
Oh yeah.
Somebody that I knew him. He and I became friends. He was also interested in science and biology, and so we had an intellectual connection. But also,
Yeah.
he had a big dealer network up north, and he was a sexist, though. He was a chauvinist. It was Mary Ann. She was the
That was
connection.
very popular back then.
Yeah. Yes. She was the connection to this guy, but she didn't think a female should be a drug dealer. So she didn't really want to do that with her, but he would do it with me, right? So he had a great connection, sold that 1,000 pounds, got the $250,000, and I don't even remember what I made off it. I was just so blown away that I'd get to bring Bruce $250,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
you're a big
meanwhile,
hero.
yes. So meanwhile, I'm living in Gainesville. I don't have a job, but I'm dealing, right? So I do have enough to live.
Well, that's a
Okay,
job.
so as a kid, yes, it is. That's right. So as a kid, we moved all the time when I was a kid. So back in those days, and I always flew. They never drove me. I always flew to the new city, and the engines that they had on these planes were turboprops, and when they started them up, flames shot out of them. And I thought, this is the coolest thing. I want to be a pilot. So there in Gainesville, I had enough money to go take lessons. So I took lessons, still dealing, and I took lessons. Then I thought, no, wait a minute. So I should say, okay, I'm dealing pot, and I meet this guy. His real name was Rick Jones, but he had the nickname Wild Man. That's because he was an experienced, successful drug pilot, very successful. Big loads of good pot. Okay, so he's down in Columbia, and he's got a DC-4. The Columbians has got him a DC-4. And he's real smart about planes. He knew all about planes, engines, now everything. So he checks this plane out and he says, I'm not flying this plane. It's not airworthy. That one engine's got real big problems. I'm not going to do it. So they pulled guns on him. And he said, they said, get in the plane and take off. He did. And the offload was on the coast of Georgia. So he makes it all the way from Columbia to Georgia. And then he sees the cops have hit the place, flashing lights. So he can't load. He has to unload. He has to turn around and get back to Columbia. So he makes it all the way until 2 miles from shore, and the engine that, like he predicted, exploded. So the plane was completely disabled. He had to crash land into the ocean, and then he swam 2 miles through shark-infested waters and made it to shore. And that's where he got the name. The Colombians called him Wild Man because he survived that 2-mile swim. Yeah, I know. But also, he also took hard drugs, and that'll come into the story. But when he was going to fly, he totally cleaned out. You couldn't see any needle marks anywhere on it. He totally cleaned out. Okay, so I think maybe I would like to work with Wild Man and go get the pot load and then bring it back. And so I talked to Bruce, and he said, yeah, okay. So I found this Beechcraft C-45. They made hundreds of them in World War II. And the reason they were so popular is they could carry almost their weight in cargo. So I got a primo C-45. I had mechanics that checked it out. it was airworthy to the max. We got a little device that you could see lightning around, because that was the danger from flying, was lightning. Okay, so um, Bruce says, "Yeah, okay, let's do it." All right, so I get the plane. Wow, man, I fly around with him a lot, because although I had a lot of lessons flying, I never got my license, and I never flew a
Ah.
twin engine. So he and I did a lot of flying, so I could be a real co-pilot. Okay, so then it's time to get it going. So at this point, here I'm actually part of the company, and Bruce would like me to be in the company full time, but here I'm thinking, listen, I'm just gonna do one load, and I'm gonna make 250,000, and then I'm gonna stop, and I'm gonna bail on the on the company. I'm not gonna do this anymore. Okay, so Bruce says, "Listen, my guy, my retired Air Force colonel, who manages these flights from the Central Plains of Colombia out to the Pacific Coast and airdrops the the bales, and then the village takes care of them. He sends me. He says, "Listen, we're gonna strap if you're okay, we're gonna strap $50,000 on you under your clothes." I was wearing a suit and everything. I had my hair short and wearing a suit. And uh, so he says, "Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna go take this $50,000 to this guy, and then you'll meet him, and apparently he wants to see if you can actually fly, see if you can actually fly an airplane." Okay, so I go there. I fly it. So Craig tells me you're going to Bogota, and I was supposed to go to Medellin. Eastern was an airline back then, and I flew Eastern, which first stopped in Medellin. You didn't have to get off the plane. You didn't have to go through customs there. The plane would go on to Bogota. So that's where I thought I was supposed to go.
How do
So,
you know? How do you not know where you're supposed to go?
hey, I was just following
Right?
orders.
Right.
I got told the wrong thing. And
Well,
I got
hold on, hold on. I want to interject a funny story.
Please.
You go to this place. When we first brought the first load into on the West Coast, we told Mike, our Colombian, his real name was Gustavo, and we said, meet on the West Coast of Panama, meet the boat, and there's a little city. I looked on the map. There's a city on the West Coast of Colombia. I said, meet the boat there. So he's there waiting for the boat. I get a call from him, and he goes, "Bruce, I'm at the city you told me to meet, and there's these turtles and these." He was in Galapagos Islands, in the same name as the city that was on the western coast of Colombia. I go, no, Mike, you're in the wrong place. It's in Panama. So it's easy to miss. I mean, I don't know how he ended up, and he look on a map. Oh, there's San Juan or whatever it was. It's in the Galapagos Islands. So, and that's that place with the giant tortoises and the
Yeah.
big lizards. And
Yeah.
it's
Sure.
like a wild place with weird animals. So
Uh-huh.
that's how Kelly got the wrong place.
Yes. Okay, so turns out that was probably the luckiest thing that ever happened to me, that mistake.
How's that?
So, well, I'll tell you here in a second. So, go to Bogota, check into the Hotel Intercontinental. I call the number that I was given, and in Spanish, I ask for Mr. Garcia. And the lady says in Spanish, we don't have a Mr. Garcia here. I'm thinking, what's the deal? Maybe I dialed the phone wrong. So I dialed it again, got the same lady, said, like I told you, there's nobody here by that name. So I'm really perplexed, but I'm not worried. See, something about this spiritual experience had me feel like I'm protected. I'm blessed, So even if I'm doing something illegal, it's going to work out okay. All right. So I'm waiting. I walk downtown Bogota, which is really cool. I fell in love with Colombia right away. Okay. So then I get a phone call, pick it up, and it's Craig. And Craig says, "We told you the wrong city. You got to get to
Uh-oh.
Medellin." So, so what I do is I figure out, okay, now how I don't want to fly with this money. How do I get back to Medellin? So I figure out, okay, you can ride a Chiva. A Chiva is this real cute little bus that does this kind of trip. It's all colorful and has little decorations on it, and it's like it's really a pleasant, joyful thing to ride on this. So I ride all the way from Bogota to Medellin. Okay, so that worked out well. So I go and I meet the retired Air Force colonel, and I give him the 50,000. And so he says, "Okay, Kelly, we're again in Spanish, Kelly," and because I just learned a little bit, enough to talk to these guys. So he said, "Okay, Kelly, here, I'm gonna take this 50,000. I want you to get on my plane." He had a two-engine plane, much more modern than the one I had, and we flew to that little village. And so he took that $50,000 and just handed it out to all these villagers. 50,000. So to them, that it was just astonishing how much money that was. And so we give all the money out, and they're just swarmed. The kids are swarmed around him. He was like a hero, like just a
Yeah.
wonderful man. Was a hero. Was so beneficial to their little poor village. Okay,
Sure.
okay. So we get back in the plane. He said, "Okay, Kelly, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna fly you to the landing strip, and then you're gonna put on the no visibility hood, and you're only gonna see the instruments, and I'm gonna fly around, and then you're gonna have to get back to that landing spot. And if you do that, we know you're the real deal." Okay,
Yeah.
so I was good at it. I had been instrument rated, the hood covered so I couldn't see any of the outside, couldn't see the land. All I could see were the instruments. So I just watched the instruments, figured out where he went. So I just did it backwards, flew right to the landing spot. He said, "Okay, okay, you're the real deal. Let's do it." Okay, so I fly back to the United States,
Well, the
and
guy didn't know. The guy didn't know. All you had to do is ask Kelly, "Can you do instrument flying?" And he didn't know Kelly couldn't lie about it.
That's right. That's right.
oh man. Okay, so I go back, and it's all about getting the plane ready, making sure everything. And Wildman and I flew around a lot. We did a charter from Gainesville to Atlanta. Flew a lot. And this guy just was so good. And I could fly the plane too. All right, so it's all set up, but I have to go back down to Colombia to approve the pot and get something very important. So I go down there, and in this case, I flew into Medellin, and they searched like you can't believe it. They searched my luggage, they searched me, they searched my fountain pen. I don't know what they thought they might find inside a fountain pen, but they did that.
Did they ask you any questions?
No, no
Good thing.
questions.
Good
Yeah,
thing.
good
That's a
thing.
good thing.
Yeah, it's a real good thing.
Right.
Okay, if I would have landed in Medellin with that $50,000 strapped to me and got off the plane, I would have been in a world of trouble. That was the lucky break that the mistake made, because I had nothing incriminating. I didn't bring anything. They had no money to speak of. So I just got right. It was very tedious. They searched everything. They were really careful about searching. Nothing. Okay, so it turns out Bruce had the head of security at the Medellin airport on his payroll. This wonderful guy, really great guy. So he lived right across the field within walking distance, right in front, not the airplane field, but a field with vegetation. We just walked to his house, and I was staying with him. And he and his wife were just wonderful people. Okay, so I'm there to approve the pot load. I'm going to pick out the pot. So they bring me some pot, and it's just a typical bilge pot. I thought you couldn't get pot like that unless it got wet in the bilge coming over in a freighter. So I said, no. It's got to look good, and it's got to smell good. Now, see, I didn't smoke. Meanwhile, Bruce's bodyguard, Nelson, showed up, and he did smoke. Okay, so I said, no, this is not going to cut it. I need something good. So then they bring this magnificent pot, bred by the Luther Burbank. Probably people don't know that. And Bruce did, because he was like one of the original organic growers ever. Bruce, these days when I say, "Hey, you know about Rodale's book about organic gardening?" They say, "Nah, Okay, so anyway, they bring me this pot, and it's red and purple. And purple pot is kind of famous. You know, red, like Punta Roja,
Sure.
that was
Yeah.
great stuff. But this was something else. This was on a level that I couldn't believe. And so I loved it. Nelson smoked it and said, "Oh, yeah, it's the real deal." But the colonel said, "Listen, Kelly, I know you like it, but you're not going to want it because it's $80 a pound out of Colombia. It's $80 a pound, not 20 or whatever it was." I said, "No, I want it." And he said, "Okay, okay. All right. So, go back to Florida." Oh, wait, no. Okay. So I chose the pot, but here's something really important. The Colombian government had changed the frequencies of the air navigation beacons in Colombia to screw up the
Hmm.
drug pilots. They didn't have the frequencies. So I don't know what happened to them all, but they sure didn't get where they wanted to go unless they
Yeah.
figured out some way that didn't involve these air nav devices. So this Aviaca pilot on his hero marks on the map the frequencies for all these beacons, the ones they've been changed to. So that way, Wildman and I are going to get to where we're going because we know the path using those beacons. So even if it's raining, no matter what, we will be able to get there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I fly back to Florida, and you fly in from Columbia to Florida, and they're going to search you. Okay, they searched me, and I was real cocky, and I said, "Ah, you got," I was making fun of them stuff. I had a briefcase, and in that briefcase was this map with these new secret frequencies. They never even looked at it. So no problem, no problem. So here I am, I've got this great pot. I've
And
got a
and
land.
and and he never lied to those guys either.
Uh-uh. Nope, never did. Nope, nope. Okay. Okay, so I had the landing strip. Mark the Shark was he was gonna do the offload and carry the pod away from the landing strip. Here's the problem. The Palatka, Florida is where this happened. The Palatka Airport is where we intended to take off from. We kept the plane there when we'd fly around. The plane was all fixed up in Opelika down south, but we kept the plane in Palatka where the owner of that airport knew what was going on. And so it was cool. Everything was cool. Okay, so Wild Man had an older brother who was a bad man. He was a criminal, he was violent, and he might have even been guilty of murder. That was not determined. He was brilliant, though.
Allegedly.
Yes,
Allegedly.
allegedly, right. They couldn't catch him, and they got so frustrated, they went to go execute him. Wild Man was hiding with the rifle, and he said, "You guys better get out of here. You're not gonna be shooting my brother."
This is the
They
police.
Yeah, this is the Palatka police. Okay, so they were so frustrated, like you say, they were frustrated. They had to end this guy's criminal career, and they had gone to the point where they're going to kill him. Okay, so Rick didn't allow that to happen. The cops developed an attitude toward him that we got to get back at this guy. So here he's flying lows in, and they get the idea that yeah, he's a pilot, right? So but his family had a big property right on the river, and that was they had a landing strip. So he would do an offload some other place, and then he'd fly in and land on his landing strip. Okay, so he lands. The cops think, "Oh, we got him. He's going to have a load." And just like Bruce has talked about, the plane had been cleaned out so completely. It wasn't a seed, there wasn't a stem, there wasn't a scent. There was no evidence that he had been doing a load. But he had 30 hits of LSD, and they found out. He went to
Oh my
prison.
goodness.
He went to prison
Wow.
for 30 months for that LSD. Yeah. Okay, so the cops had it out for him. So here we are. We had this great big gas tank. This plane was just ready to go. It was in good shape, had a great huge extra gas tank. We weren't going to run out of gas. Everything was working on the plane. We're getting to the point, we're going into the door of the plane to take off, and here come the cops. 2 cars. So they jump out the car and they tell Rick, "Get in the car." And I don't think they had their guns drawn, but this guy was their enemy. They put him in the car and they drive away. So then they go to search the plane, and I say, "No, I'm an agent of the owner of this plane. I do not give you permission to search this plane." So they say, "Get in the other car." So
Right.
so they put me in the car and they take me to the jail. I get in the holding cell where you always go when you're coming in at the jail or out of jail. I sit there for 2 hours. Then they take me across the street into this conference room where there's a judge, a prosecutor, a court reporter, and a witness. And the judge says to me, "We are hereby granting you complete immunity. Nothing you're going to say can be held against you as a crime." And he said, "Okay, we're going to ask you a question. And you have immunity. You can't plead the fifth. If you refuse to answer it, we're going to declare contempt of court. You're going to go across the street in the jail. You're not going to be arrested. You're going to be held there for 6 months. And if you don't tell us the answer within that 6 months, we're going to give you another 6 months." Okay, so that was, I really wasn't scared. I should have been, but I wasn't. What I was concerned about was Wild Man going back, getting his parole violated, and going back to prison. Because I thought
Right.
maybe he was still on parole. Okay, so the judge asked me, "Have you ever seen Rick Jones do drugs?" And I thought, I'm not going to tell him. He could go back to prison. So I say, he's my friend. I'm not telling you. I'm not talking to you. So they say, "Okay, go on back. Go on back to the jail. Start your 6 months." Nothing about the plane, nothing about smuggling, just about him. All they cared about was nailing him.
Hmm.
Okay, so they take
Why is
me.
that? Did you ever find out why?
Well, yeah, because he didn't let the cops kill his brother.
He went up in a tree with a rifle and had the rifle trained on the policeman and said, "You're not going to kill him. Get out of here." And they had no
Yeah,
choice. They couldn't, they didn't want to get shot.
right, right.
Hmm.
And
So,
they couldn't arrest
yeah,
him because they were doing something illegal, murdering a guy that
exactly,
they couldn't
exactly.
catch.
Yes. Okay, so wouldn't talk, wouldn't snitch on him. Okay, so they take me back across the street into the holding cell, which you always do. You go in the holding cell and then you go to your cell. So there's Rick. He's getting extradited from Palatka over to Gainesville on a cocaine charge that was ridiculous. He left a little packet of cocaine, empty basically, on the bar, the bar top. Somebody got it, and the police tested. Yeah, cocaine. We're going to get him because they knew he was a. They didn't know about the Palatka cops, but they knew he was big in the business. They just couldn't catch him. So anything they could go for, they go for. Well, of course, now the short story in that is the police tested the coke. It was coke, but then his lawyer says, I got to test it." Well, they had used it on, so he got off. So, but anyway,
Oh, nice.
in the holding cell, I asked him, "Are you still on parole?" And he said, "No, no." And he said, "Okay, uh, I'm going to get you my lawyer, my local lawyer, really good lawyer." Okay, so it was Friday, so nothing could happen. So I stayed. I was in jail for the weekend, and the word got around that I was with Wild Man, Rick Jones, and so I was kinda like Bruce. I was treated with kid gloves, nobody gonna mess with me, right? So, on Monday, I meet with the lawyer. I tell him the story, and he said, "Oh, come on, go in there and tell him." Okay, so I go back in there. They set up another, the lawyer got this session going, where they'd ask me again. So, same thing. "Judge, you've got immunity. Have you ever seen Rick Jones use drugs?" And I told the truth. I said, on 2 occasions, I smoked a marijuana cigarette with him. And they said, you should have told us that. Get out of here. So that was it. They let me go. Nothing about smuggling, plane, nothing at all.
It's a
Yeah.
So
good
they
thing
really
because
didn't
Kelly
know
couldn't
anything.
lie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
kidding.
yeah.
Yeah.
But they didn't know that. They didn't know that, did they?
No, they thought that maybe I was a needle user too, and then I saw him do
Yeah,
coke and heroin because he did. I knew he did. I knew he shot coke,
yeah,
shot heroin. I also knew that before a trip, he would clean out completely. He was extraordinarily healthy, but
yeah, yeah.
he did have a drug problem.
So Kelly, so you're released from jail, right? You're kind of joking around about it because nothing really happened. And
Yeah.
what happens next with the company?
Okay, now so we'll go to I think Bruce has a question about this. What happened to the plane? Here's what happened to the plane. The mechanics that had worked on it made it a great drug plane for hauling pot, stole it. They came to Palatka Airport and stole the plane and got an Eastern. I think the guy was also an Eastern pilot to go to Bahamas, pick up a load, bring it back. The Coast Guard spotted him when he hit the coast. So he had to quickly land the plane full. There was a stretch of road that wasn't that was completely paved, but wasn't in use by cars yet. He landed there, ran away as fast as he could. They never caught him, but they got the plane, they got the pot, and nobody ever saw it again. The cops
Oh wow.
impounded the plane, so that was it. And the next thing that happened convinced me that it was time to not go on with this. Because what happened was, uh, I'd done that thing with immunity and everything, and so Wildman got off. So he said, "Listen, I want you to meet a really great lawyer." So he goes, he takes me it's in Gainesville, and this lawyer's name was Selig Golden. Okay, this guy was really good, really knowledgeable. So he says to me, I meet him, turns out Rick has $30,000 in the guy's safe as a retainer if he ever needs him. And so of course, Selig liked him a lot. So he talks to me. He says, "Kelly, listen, were you in on that Cat Island thing?" And I said, "No, no, I wasn't on that." He said, "Well, the feds think you were in on that, and they're watching you." And so at that point, it was like, I'm done. It's over. And
Ah,
so,
interesting.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. So that was the
Just
end
the
of,
threat of right, just the threat of the feds watching you was enough for you.
yes. And my plan was to have a kid, so I couldn't be in jail and be a dad, so that was a big motivation there. Um,
Yeah.
but so in the
And
meantime,
then
Right.
didn't you bring 500 pounds down to Craig?
yes, that was
Didn't you
part of
bring
my,
500 pounds down from your house in Gainesville to,
yes,
as part of your retirement mode?
yes, yes. That's
Oh,
what.
so you're thinking about retirement, you wanna go have a kid. Tell us how you, get out of the business 'cause,
Well, that's like
according to
Bruce
Bruce, it's
said.
very difficult
Bruce
to get
said,
out of the business, right?
right. So I told Craig, he understood because he had to plan like that too eventually. And so he took the 500 and then that was it. That was it. And so at that point, I went back to college, but that's when I said, "Nah, I'm not going to do this." And I started doing stuff
And
that,
do you have a lot of money saved, or
oh
do you
no,
need to just go enter society?
I
No?
just need to go enter society. No idea. Like Bruce, it's always you're investing, right? You're investing in trips or whatever.
Yeah.
And I didn't make that much, but I was going to make a lot on this plane load of this superb weed.
Mhm.
Okay, so I start going to work. I'm recovered now, where I can actually do non-crime work, right? Okay, so I become a TV repairman, and because I knew electronics, and so then Bobo, it turns out, Bruce tells me, "Listen, Kelly, you can make a lot of money if you work offshore on the oil rig." And I thought, yeah, yeah, I want to do that. I want to get a bunch of money, get a van, and go on tour, get a band together and go on tour. That's what my goal was, to be a professional musician. Okay, so so uh, I'm working as a TV repairman. I think, nah, this you can't make any money if you don't if unless you have a TV store. So I go with what Bobo said, you know, and I go out to the Golden Triangle, the Louisiana, Texas, and I try to find a job. And I got connections with my family. I can't find a job. So then my cousin lives in Austin, so I'm really disappointed. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. So I go to my cousin's house, a professional musician, very popular. There was always a party at his house. So when I got there and visited him, there were people in there. And so I'm telling Bruce my sad story. And this young guy, he says, to me, "Hey, you looking for a job in the oil patch?" I said, "Well, yeah." He said, "Hey, let me call my grandpa. He just retired as the president of Sun Oil." So he,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So he calls his grandpa, hangs up. He said, "Listen, wait by the phone here, because the guy's gonna call you and tell you when to go to the heliport in Morgan City to catch the ride out to the rig, your new job." Okay, so boom, there I am. I got a job on the oil rig. I really liked it. It was big fun. And then an oil glut hit.
And what were you doing? What were you doing for
I was
the
something
oil
called a
company?
rigger. I would climb through the pipes. I'd hang off the side of the rig and do work. I didn't do anything with this was a production rig, so you didn't have the danger of a drilling rig, you know. So it was fun. I really liked it. But the glut, there was an oil glut, and my company went immediately bankrupt because they lost the contract with Gulf Oil.
Oh,
So
geez.
here I was, no job, no prospects of a job, and living in a trailer in Lake Charles, Louisiana, right next to I-10. So got no money. My wife and my little girl have to go to Ohio to stay with her mom because we have no money. They got to survive. So I think, oh man, I'm cooked. I think it's time to go. I was really thinking I was hopeless, right? But then I remembered, wait a minute, manifestation. What you visualize tends to occur. So I visualized a solution to my problem. What happens? Mark the Shark calls me up and he says, "Listen, I want you to haul a van with my band. So I'm going to drive all the way from Florida holding a van with a van." And he said, "I'll pay you $3,000. So at that point, say I'm out of the company. I haven't done anything. And now all I'm doing is driving across the country with a van, on a van. So I get
Well, hold
there.
on, Kelly. Hold on,
Yeah.
Kelly. Hold on the van. Back up to when you owed me $250,000 and I
Oh,
and Casey was born and what happened
okay.
there.
All right. So,
This is before he retired.
yeah, before I retired, this was another motivation that led me to want out. Um, this house, I had a stash house, and there was a time when nobody was guarding it. I go back out there, and it's all the pots gone. It's all gone. And here I am, no pot to sell. Oh, Bruce, 250,000. And I'm thinking, how am I ever going to fix this? Because I'm done with this job. I'm done with the company. I'm not going back into this stuff. And so my daughter,
And you
Casey,
can't
is
even
born.
lie about it.
I
You
can't even
you can't
lie.
even lie about it.
I
Right.
know.
And by the way, I knew somebody really stole the pot because Kelly couldn't lie.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like Bruce, I delivered my first daughter. And like Bruce, I had midwives there to help if anything went bad. But I delivered my daughter in the basement. I mean, in our apartment, in the bed, right? Okay, so that was a wonderful experience, as I'm sure yours was too, Bruce. Uh, okay, so I have a daughter. She's up in Ohio with my wife, and I got no money, but I'm out there, and I find out what's going on. This turns out that barge dock was the real deal, and Bruce has it going. It's really, really going. And apparently, I was maybe it was the first tie load. Have you determined that, Bruce?
Yeah, it was, but you never told about how the debt was resolved.
Oh yeah, yeah. I skipped that. Yeah, it's rather embarrassing. So Bruce calls me to congratulate me, and he says, "Oh, by the way, in celebration of Casey's birth, let's just forget that $250,000."
Wow.
Yeah, so he forgave the $250,000 as a celebration of the birth of my first daughter.
Well,
Yeah.
I bet that was your best baby shower gift.
Oh, I mean, come on. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It also demonstrates that our organization, me at the head, and that inculcated down to everybody else, we operated from the heart. We weren't the cocaine guys who are gonna, I mean, if it was cocaine cowboys, they would have shot him or at least shot his legs. And
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
he's a friend. He's, his daughter's birth. I operate from the heart. Kelly, forget the debt. $250,000. I didn't need it at the time. Kelly didn't need that burden. So, all right. So now we're going to jump back to the
Well,
vans
that
and
actually
Mark.
circles back also to, your understanding that love rules the universe. So that
Yeah.
was just more love that you were putting out there to your boy.
Yeah, and, I was, of course, I was ashamed really, but then when he did that, like you said, it's about love, and, um, so that worked out. Uh, so, like I
So
say,
does that wet your whistle a little since he relieves that debt from you? Now do you think, oh, well, let me get back into this thing?
not at all. Nope, not at all, not for a second. I thought,
Nice.
okay, so
Oh,
I'm hauling the van, I get there, Mark gives me the 3,000, and then he explains to me how they do what they're doing, and I tell him, "Listen, can I be on the offload crew?" He says, "Listen, no, I can't hire anybody with a family, I just can't do that." But I made it clear to him that, "Listen, I don't have a family and I don't have no money." So it was 12,500 was the pay for an offloader guy. All right, so I got to see the whole thing, the whole operation, including the electronic surveillance that they did that was unbelievable. They had a broadband receiver that could receive radio signals on any frequency, any mode, any modulation. They could see it. Then they would investigate and see if that was a law enforcement
right.
frequency. Then they would have the scanners tuned to those frequencies. So the night that I was the offloader, one of the offloaders, there was an incident going on where a big kingpin was flying into the bay, and the Coast Guard, the DEA, the FBI, they were all working on trying to catch that guy. So we knew there was no problem. They didn't know about us. They didn't care. They were all busy, right? So what he did with the surveillance and having the speedboats there to get away, it's all really amazing to me to hear this in the podcast because I didn't know the details of all that. I didn't know how frequent the trips were, for instance. Okay,
Right.
so it's this tie load. The boat comes in.
Wait, let me
Yeah,
interject. This is approximately the July of 82. So 1980, we brought in 5 loads. 1981, we brought in another 4 or 5 loads. I mean, some of these we forgot. And now my focus is changed from Colombia over to Thailand because I got a partner, Al, and a couple other partners. And Thai was the big thing. I mean, look, I was selling the pot for 3 and 3 1/4 off the boat from Colombia. Thai was the worst load you get. If you get a bad load, it's 1,000, and if you get a really good load, it's 2,000. So let's say 2,000 versus 300. My focus was, you do one Thai load, and that equals 4 Colombian loads. So I was,
And
although
wasn't it called wasn't it called Thai stick back then?
no, there were tie
No?
sticks, but this was not. This was tied like in a high quality backpack. like a bale, only it was put into a really fine, sturdy backpack.
Oh, got it.
So
We
it
did
was.
have tie sticks, and we
Oh
did
yeah,
have tie that were not on the sticks.
sure, and that's what this was. Tie that was on the six, very high quality. So it was real fun. It was really fun. Didn't feel scared. We had kind of a chain of people. The boat, and this is kind of funny, man. Somebody'd get off the boat, hand it off, and they'd hand it to me, and I'd hand it to Mary Ann. And Mary Ann she was packing the semi. That was her job. And you'd have to pack it carefully because you were going to fill it up, So that was
And is
the
that
end.
Marianne, Craig's Marianne?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So everything went fine. It was a good deal. And I got back.
Well, describe the offload a little bit, because this
Okay.
is now like the 12th offload on the same exact place.
It was the 13th, actually.
13th.
Yeah.
Lucky 13.
I know, ironically. Yeah. So, like I say, the boat comes in. We're sure there's no surveillance. The boat. We know that they're all busy doing this other thing. When they never caught
Yeah, but
the
that
guy,
doesn't
by the
have
way.
you nervous. You got the DEA and the FBI, like at the a dock over, and that
Nope.
doesn't concern you guys?
No, because they weren't close. Yeah, they weren't close. No, and it was so clear that they were completely engrossed. They had no time for anything else. It was such a big deal. This guy had escaped, and they just wanted him so bad. Okay, so the first thing is this wideband receiver. They had it there. I was so impressed. I'd heard of these as physics, astrophysics, electronics. I'd heard of one of these. I'd never seen one.
Yeah.
So they were looking for any unknown frequencies. The known frequencies were what they were able to catch all the conversations back and forth. FBI, DEA, Coast Guard, so on. They had the whole story. That's why we knew they were busy. They were occupied. So it was going to be fine. Okay, so it was all very crisp. The bail comes off, goes down the line, gets packed in. So, but between the time the boat got to the dock and the truck leaving to go to the stash house, that was 40 minutes max. And this was a lot of bales, but it was also just like Bruce has described. Everything was organized. Everybody knew what to do. I was tipped on how to do it. Was like physical labor, And I was honest, I wasn't going to snitch on anybody and so on. Okay, so it was
Unless
amazing.
somebody asked you the question.
Yeah, that's right.
He wouldn't answer.
No, I just nope. Okay, so like I said though, I dealt with bales and with burlap bags, or the other thing they'd bring it in was cigarette cases like Marlboro. They used to joke about Marlboro, where they'd stuff the pot in what house many cigarettes and stuff the pot in there, and that was kind of better than the burlap bags, but still it was kind of rinky, But this load in these brand new, high quality backpacks, it was easy to handle, and it was just great. There was nothing going to leak out of these guys, and they were very sturdy. And as it turned out, it was really great as far as fronting out to the dealer network, because like Bruce said, this pot was.
Wait, I want to talk
Okay.
about one little piece of and I don't know if we did it on this load or not. One of the things we did, we all wore when we are offloading on the dock, we would put on overalls, not in the first few loads, but we realized you're stinking of marijuana. So we put on overalls over our clothes. We'd offload, I was there for the first 5 trips, but not the rest. And then you take that off and you throw that into the back of the truck. That was the last thing you did. So if the truck did get pulled over, which happened one time, it broke down and, on the way to the stash house. And after that, I bought my own. They had a tow truck come out and fix it and get it in the tow truck. Said to the guy, "Well, you better do something about that smell." Okay. Thank you, California road tow guys. So he didn't report it to the police. So we bought our own truck. I had the truck with every known mechanical tool on there, from lifts to air, to blow the tires up. Whatever could go wrong, that was on that truck, and that was just available in case that happened again.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that was one of those mistakes people made back in Florida, where they get pulled over and they just reeked of marijuana. And in our case, we did not reek of marijuana. I don't know if you had that on this load because it was such a clean packaging. Did you or did you not?
No, and there was no scent on me afterwards. Yeah,
Okay.
it was really great, the packing. Yeah, and easy to move across the dock, and load up, and no smell. Yeah, so that was really good. Yeah.
And how did you
And
get
did you
off the
guys just
dock?
ship it out in backpacks? Did you guys just hey, give me 7 backpacks, and that was the deal?
I don't know. You mean when it was fronted?
When it was going out, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Bruce would know probably.
No, no, they would weigh. They'd say we need, 100 pounds, and 100 pounds were in maybe 5 backpacks.
Yeah.
They were smaller weight.
Uh-huh.
They weren't the 50 to 70-pound bales.
Thank
because
goodness.
you didn't want to compress the Thai weed
No.
like you did the Colombian commercial. This is connoisseur good weed, similar like today. You don't press all that stuff in. So
Yeah.
And this stuff was profoundly popular. I think, I don't know if that was always the case, but people involved took pay in those backpacks, and it
Right,
just
right.
sold like crazy. It was really popular, just excellent, top grade, Yeah.
So
Kelly-
Kelly, how did your spiritual journey really help you get through all of this stuff? And how did you see Bruce sort of grow into his kingpin status, using his spiritual guidance?
Well, like I told you, even though I was doing stuff that was illegal, I still felt protected. Bruce and I had this deal. Like we got this. We had learned about how you can surround yourself in a protective aura to keep bad stuff away, bad thoughts or whatever. And Bruce and I had a deal where we both did that, but we had this deal where if either one of us was in trouble, we'd psychically contact each other, the other one. Now, I'm glad you brought that up because there's some really important stuff. Bruce has talked about going to Fairchild Gardens, and something happened there, and then something happened at my house. Bruce, were you when I did your ankle? Were you was it a competition or practice or what?
I think it was at school at
Yeah.
right before the competition.
Yes, right before the competition. Okay, so Bruce is getting ready for this competition. Real good gymnast, as you probably can imagine, and he sprains his ankle. So Bruce and I had studied this idea of this prana being energy that you could pull in with your breathing and then apply to some malady and have it get healed. We hadn't tried it, but Bruce figured, oh, here's our chance. It was like he wasn't all concerned about not being in the competition. It was a chance to really experiment, to have an experiment. Okay, so he comes over, I do the thing, and I feel like electricity is coming out of my hands. I'm not laying my hands on him. I got my hands close to his ankle, but not on it. And I feel like this electric uh, uh, surge coming out of my hand into his ankle, and it healed. It was fine, right?
So what
Yeah,
was
I
your
couldn't-
experience on that, Bruce? I mean, how did you feel about all that?
I had a serious injury. I could not, you're tumbling, and it was for free X. The rings, the high bar, you don't need your ankle. But in tumbling, you did. And I was the all-around man, so I did all the all the events. And so I couldn't walk on it. I was limping, and he did that. Friggin' thing healed up. I did my tumbling routine. There was no pain. You're landing pretty hard on your ankle, and I did. It healed. It was healed, and it was done. It didn't get worse after the competition. It stayed healed. So
No,
that makes you a believer for life then, right? I mean,
and there's more. There's
that's just
more.
a
Todd.
well, yeah, they call that Reiki.
Yeah.
Now it's called Reiki. All right. But back then we just said prana is universal energy. You can direct the prana through your body. We would breathe it in and then direct it like this, put your hands in and direct it. And I could direct it, uh, especially when I was on LSD. It was easy. You could direct it, but you could actually see it. Oh wow, look at all those paisleys, those paisleys you see. That's what prana looks like. And look, I can send it wherever I want. So, um, and we did this experiment earlier at Fairchild Gardens,
Yeah, I
and
was just
Kelly
going to
was
talk
not on
about that.
LSD.
No,
He was
no.
not. I was on LSD. I could see the prana. I could see thought forms. So go ahead, tell him that story.
All right. Okay. Part of what we had learned through our study about this stuff was the concept of thought forms. That there you can have a feeling or a set of thoughts, and they can actually be represented as like a cloud of a certain color. It was like the idea of an aura, but it wasn't around somebody's body. It's something that could travel and could even remain in let's say, a house. So that so we knew that if somebody comes into a house and they sense a presence and they feel like maybe it's a ghost, it could have been a thought form. Okay.
Let me do a precursor to this
Yeah.
story. I'm on acid. We're in Fairchild Gardens, and I noticed this beautiful glowing energy running up and down the palm trees. I'm laying on the ground looking up at the palm trees and emanating like the aurora borealis from the top of the leaves. And then I started looking at my friends and I see colors coming out of their head. The full-blown human aura. It's not vague. It's clear as a bell. This is a blue, a purple, a yellow, and it's emanating from their thoughts. And it's changing a little bit as their thoughts are changing and things change. The colors change. So I go up to Kelly. I go, Kelly, I can see colors coming out of people's heads. And you know what this means. What does this mean?
Yeah. So here was another chance at experiment. So how far away from each other do you think we were, Bruce?
Well, at the thought form thing, we're about 30 feet.
Yeah, at least. Yeah,
Yeah,
30 feet
maybe
at least.
30 to 50 feet.
Yeah, 30 to 50, exactly. Okay, so here was our
Well, wait.
plan.
First you
Okay,
said,
yeah.
that's the thought form experiment. First you said, what color is coming out of my head?
Oh,
And I said, okay, that's yellow. And he goes, okay, what about now? It's red. He was changing his thoughts. He was getting angry, red. He was getting jealous, whichever color, that orange, whatever it was. He was feeling love. All right, that changed a different color, and it was really easy. I mean, it's not rocket science. Oh, now it's green. Now it's blue. So he knew because he read the book before I did about human aura, and so he knew what the colors meant. So he knew how to change his thoughts to hit that color. All right, so now we did the color thing that matched everything he knew about the human aura, and now we're going to do the second experiment. And that's when I'm about 30 to 50 feet away from him.
okay. So, Todd, what I did was I used that idea of thoughts and emotions, and I visualized a cloud of this, a thought form that had a certain color. So I visualized it moving around. And so Bruce right away would name the color and he would point and I wasn't looking. I was doing this strictly with my mind. I wasn't looking where I was sending the thought form, but where I was sitting, he pointed. I clearly saw it because he was pointing where I put it. And so this was another experiment we did that verified this stuff's for real, like positive empirical evidence. And just as an aside, I had a terrible headache for 2 months from doing this. And one other thing I want to mention was about Bruce has described how beautiful Fairchild Gardens was. So I don't think I ever smoked or took LSD there. My focus was to look at the beauty, smell the fragrances, feel the sun, all to get to the now. That was like one of my big disciplines was get into the present moment, because then you could experience peace and that certain kind of love that comes not from you, but from a higher plane and so on. Uh, so it was It was amazing. And now let me tell you about the ankle. I was scared. When that happened, I thought, "Oh my, I don't want to be a healer." No, no, I know they're never free of people coming begging, "Please heal me, please heal me." So I didn't tell anybody, I don't think. Did you tell anybody at the time, Bruce?
I told my family, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't want to be a healer. You didn't want to be a dealer. You didn't want to be a wheeler. I couldn't think of anything else that
Liar.
that rhymes with
You
that.
didn't wanna be a
Be a
liar.
liar. Yeah.
Couldn't be a liar.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Kelly, I got to tell you, this has been lots and lots of fun hearing stories of Bruce in the early days. Well, one last question is, you've known Bruce all these years. You've seen him grow from a popular kid in high school to a kingpin to a successful businessman. He's always been a good friend over the years. Just explain the relationship and what it's meant to you over the years.
Well, number one really is the spiritual partnership. And I'm so glad to be able to make this podcast so I can describe the Bruce I know. Because other people get money and cars, I mean, being a king of pot, you could miss the whole thing. You might know he gives a lot of money away, and that might be interesting, good guy. But for me, it's knowing him and his basic motivation being spiritual and being of service to the world, not just to his family, not just to friends, but he was in it for everybody. So I just love the chance of pointing that out, seeing that part of his being that other people may have never known about at all.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
wanna illustrate that and drive that point home. On our podcast, everyone that's a guest here is going to get a pre-roll, one of these. We have a bunch of them in inventory, and we have Billy Hayes as the second one. The third one will be the Doc Master, and you collect these. So Kelly will have, we'll call him Kelly the Kind or Kelly something. Kelly the Not Liar.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
And every one of those,
Kelly
and
the
they'll go
Truth
all
Teller.
get a residual. And then we're going to have the posters, these posters right here, that behind Todd's shoulder and back there. And all the smugglers on this podcast will get a residual from the posters. Then we're going to have the coin. All right. And so, and I've already minted a half-ounce pure silver coin for the King of Pot. Then we'll do it for, the Billy Hayes and for the Doc Master, for Kelly and for Surfer Bob and for all the people on the, Captain Brett, Cecil the Stager, all the guys that are coming on this podcast after the coin will have and that's a collectible. Can you imagine collecting all the old OGs coin? Because we're not just going to do our organization, which Kelly was a part of. We're going to do all the old smugglers, of yesteryear. Because those smugglers and what Kelly described today, if you would put a name to it, I'm reading all the books and watching all the podcasts to get the history of our movement. A DA agent wrote a book. It never got published, but I read the book in print, WordPress, on the computer, and he named us. He said, these guys, me being just one of many, probably one of 50, we were an archetype. We were the counterculture, hippie founding fathers of marijuana. He called us the counterculture founding fathers of marijuana, which we were. The Tommy Powells of the world, the Steve Kalishes of the world, the Randy Laniers, and I added the word hippie. So Kelly just exemplified that energy. Now, a lot of people weren't spiritual, but they were kind. They were into yoga. Billy Hayes did yoga for his whole life. So did Randy Lanier. And that was our mindset. We weren't the rednecks, although we worked with the rednecks. We weren't the cocaine cowboys, the violent guys. We weren't, the ex-mayor of Hollandale or the Herschels. They were more rednecks or Everglades City guys. But we worked together, and we all had the same thing. No guns, no violence, no cocaine, and pretty much, not all the time, but pretty much no snitching. And that was Kelly, that was me, that was a lot of us. But some guys did, and personally, I don't blame them. I'm not, I have no grudges. So that's what this podcast captures, the essence of that spiritual undertone for everything we've done. Even today, I'm making money for all the old smugglers. I want them all to get a residual. And we're actually working with a company, we've already sent them, that has 20,000 distributors worldwide to sell these pre-rolls and these posters and the coins and then the comic books. We'll do comic books. And who knows what other collectibles will come, but that's going to be a way for me to help all those old smugglers retire with a decent residual. And then I'll take the company public, that company, and give all these smugglers and everyone that comes to this podcast 1 million shares of stock. So,
Okay, well, lots of promises made today on the Becoming the King of Pot to help
that's my intent. I may not pull it off, but that's at least the way I want to, what I would like to do, and we're moving forward in doing that.
We are moving forward. In fact, we're going to have a contest and give away some of this stuff coming up soon. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. So once again, Kelly, thanks for joining us here at Becoming the King of Pot. And thanks for guiding Bruce's spirituality all of these years and really teaching him the things that helped him turn into the King of Pot. As usual, Bruce, thanks for, again, the incredible life that you've lived, and thanks for bringing on Kelly. Any final words that you'd like to add there, Bruce?
No, I'm just really glad personally in my heart that Kelly came on and got to tell that part of the story, because he's one of the only guys that know it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks for that.
I
once
have
again,
one thing,
Kelly.
Todd. I have one thing, Todd.
Sure.
I
Sure.
love being in the audience of these podcasts.
Oh, well, thanks.
I think you guys are doing a great job. Really enjoy it, and I'm honored to be involved.
Well, I appreciate that, Kelly. And with that said, make sure you like, share, and of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It helps our cause here at Becoming the King of Pot. And we'll be back every Saturday with a new episode right here, wherever you're listening or watching your podcast. So thanks a lot for joining us. We'll see you next time.